Well, welcome back to the Entrepreneurial Adventurer podcast and YouTube channel. As you know, every time we have special guests. Today we have a very, very special guest. It's early morning in the United States of America, where Jeff Weinstein is. And we're waking him up with this hopefully interesting interview or more dialogue that we are going to have. Good morning, Jeff. I hope you are fine. And you are well known in the tourism, in the hotel industry, as I can say from your LinkedIn profile. Of course, also you have more than 35 years hospitality business to business experience in journalism. And from this 26 in the global hotel industry. So you are, we don't actually have to introduce you. You have a quite amazing background and experience also as a speaker and moderator, and especially with the hotel magazine and with the Red Business information. You have also been awarded 5 times the Jesse H. Neal Awards, and you're directing the Hotels magazine since November '94. That was when I was 9 years old, so it's quite a long time. And I really liked it how you introduce yourself on the social media, that you like to live along the golden rule. This was really amazing. And well, I have much more questions, but before this, I would like to ask you, before we go maybe in the personal, in the professional background, because mostly or many times you're also on my position, that you also interviewed other people. The bulldog work ethic that you have. Could we start with this? I really like this expression.
Well, first, Alec, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be with you, and we'll look forward to enjoying this conversation. Oh boy, bulldog. I don't know. I think I just inherited my work ethic from my parents. Not unsurprising. You know, most people do kind of inherit some of those traits from family, and both my parents worked really hard and to take care of their family, and I'm the same. I'm not afraid of hard work. Sometimes I wish I had more help. You know, in today's business world, it's do more with less. I'm a good person to do that because, you know, I'm just kind of, you know, strap myself down in the morning and get at it. And it helps that I love what I do. I love the hotel business. I love the people in the hotel business. I'm probably an innkeeper at heart. I love to take care of people. And that's very noble. And that's what these people do every day. So I really have a lot of respect. And, you know, I love talking to them. I love learning about the hotel business. And of course, hotels has always been global in its coverage. Hotels has been around for 57 years, approximately, and always global. So my readership is global. I attend events globally and learn about different cultures, and hoteliers are special. So it's not hard to have a bulldog work ethic when you love what you do.
Mm-hmm. Could we maybe go back in time? You started with journalism, studying journalism. You inherited your work ethic. You say also by your family, from your parents. How when you were like, let's get some decades back, were you always sure it was the hotel industry that you had this passion, or how was it? Why did you choose this way?
You know, I started out in high school and in college as a sports writer. And I became a little disenchanted with that. And I was doing various types of journalism jobs. I was actually doing online publishing before the internet. Wow. Believe it or not, that's going back 40 years. And an opportunity that I noticed came up was to write about the restaurant industry. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, I like to eat. So I applied for that job, And it turned out the chief editor was a big golfer, liked to golf. So, and I did too. So during the entire job interview, we talked about golf.
Wow.
And,
You
we
got
hit
the
it
job.
off. We hit it off, and I got the job. And so I started learning about the restaurant industry. And it's not like you're not writing reviews, you're writing about the business. Writing about restaurant operations and restaurant development. So I did that for 8 years and kind of worked my way up. And it's funny, it's a funny story. I worked for a big Reed Elsevier, a big British Dutch publishing company, global media company, was my employer. And so I worked in an office with, probably about 30 different publications. And you make friends, of course, in your office. And there was one gentleman that we hung out, and there was a hockey arena across the street from the office. So one night we decided to go to the hockey game. And we were sitting there, talking about work as we were watching the game. And he said to me, "What, if there's one job in the company you'd like to have, what would it be?" And immediately I say, "Oh, Hotels Magazine. That's the job." Because it's global, it's the hotel business, it's glamorous, it's fun. And he agreed. It's like, yeah, that would be the great job. And a week later, I got a call into the corner office, said, "We'd like you to take over Hotels Magazine."
Wow.
So it just happened. I mean, I studied journalism in school, and careers just kind of happen. And that's how mine came about, starting with talking about golf.
And I guess you have so many adventures that you could not only write one book, but many books about all that you have experienced, especially with Hotels Magazine. Are there any particular lessons, leadership lessons, or something that you never will forget that you want to share, some stories? And because you have seen many countries, I guess. I don't know if you have counted them.
Yeah, I'll tell you one story. Actually, I can even illustrate it a little bit. I don't know if you can see over my shoulder. You see this coat behind me?
Yeah.
So that coat came from Saudi Prince Al Walid.
Wow.
Who's a big hotel owner. And back in 1998, spring of 1998, we decided to start another magazine. There's two sides to the hotel business. There's hotel operations, the day-to-day running of hotels, and separately, there's the real estate. Marriott may run the hotel, but they don't own it. Somebody else owns it. And often it might be a high net worth individual or a sovereign wealth fund or pension funds, what have you. And Saudi Prince Al Walid was a very high profile hotel owner. So we were going to launch this second magazine all about the investment side of the business, the real estate. And I knew some people through my connections who worked for the Prince. And I thought, okay, if we're going to kick off this magazine, let's kick it off big. And let me see if I can get an interview with Prince Al Walid. And so I worked and I worked and I worked at it. And I finally get a call from his people saying, "This is the date, come to Riyadh." And, he's camping out in the desert, come this day. And so I had to quickly get a visa. And this happened to be at the height of one of the Gulf War crises when the eldest President Bush was threatening to attack Iraq.
So 88, 89, like this, no?
This was 98. And the US had their boats off of the coast of Iraq and were threatening Saddam Hussein. And here I am flying next door into Saudi Arabia. And I was well taken care of. Being part of the royal family, I was taken care of very well.
Are they good hosts?
They were amazing hosts. So I got into Riyadh, spent the night in a hotel. I was picked up the next morning and driven out to the desert where the Prince was keeping camp. And he was being charitable. All the Bedouins were coming by by truck, by horseback, by foot
Mm.
to get some charitable money from the prince. They would stand in front of him, explain, what they needed, why they needed some money to, patch up the roof of their house or whatever it was. And they would recite a poem, something to that effect. And the prince would write out a little chit. And there was a little tent over to the side, which was the bank. And, and the Bedouins would, get their little slip from the prince with how much money they could have. And the Bedouins would go into the tent and collect their money and go home and patch the roof. So we went falconing together, and we spent the whole day and night together talking. And this was the interview I was doing for that first issue of what is known as Hotels Investment Outlook. And we dined together on the ground, and they were serving me pickled camel eyes. And I passed. I politely passed on the pickled camel eyes.
What are camel eyes?
Camel eyes.
Camel eyes. Wow.
Pickled camel eyes.
Oh, no.
No thanks. I passed. But it was an amazing experience, and a lot of his, the people that I knew were also on the trip, and he had the entire camp outfitted. There were big TVs because we were watching the news because war was supposedly imminent, and there was a Chevy Suburban van in a ditch. Mm-hmm. And I asked the prince, why is that van in the ditch? He goes, do you see that van? It can withstand a nuclear blast. It was outfitted to overcome nuclear. And I immediately started counting the number of people at the camp to say, am I going to get a seat in that van if there's a bomb tossed to Riyadh? And of course there wasn't, nothing ever happened. But that was one of my favorite adventures. Flying into Riyadh, I quickly flew out after the interview. And he was the cover for the first issue of Hotels Investment Outlook. So that was one of my favorite experiences. And as you can see, I keep that coat, and as a memory. It's a rabbit lined, full length coat, because it got chilly. It got chilly that night when we were out there, and you could tell I was cold. And he's like, here, take this, wear this, and take it with you. So it's like my little memento, my moment with the prince. That was kind of fun.
So I guess you have to have another or a lot of this kind of souvenirs, no? From the
little things here and there. I'm not a big collector, quite honestly. But we travel to a lot of hotel investment conferences. This industry kind of moves around all these conferences where owners and developers and brands get together and do business around a conference, make deals and sell and trade hotels and sign management contracts and find new franchises. And those are all over the world during the course of the year. And we attend many of those in Dubai and Hong Kong and in the States. And they're on every continent throughout the year. And that's where I make a lot of my connections and make friends. That's, again, what I love about this business is it's very personable. People are very friendly. It's natural when you're in the hospitality business.
That's true. And especially if you're such a nice host, and we can feel it. So it's nice to chat with you. How can we imagine your daily work? Because maybe we think, you're drinking some daiquiris at the bar and writing something. How would your day to be?
Not that.
No, not like this.
It's not that romantic, Alex. Not nearly. Sometimes, but not too often. So, I've been working from home now for over a year because of COVID, and I'm actually in my daughter's old bedroom. That's become my office. It's pink. I don't know if you noticed the colors, but it's a pink room.
A little bit.
Yeah. So I've been, even before this, we put out a daily newsletter and monthly magazines, special projects that we do across, and with a small staff, not big enough, of course, never big enough. So I'm a grinder. I'm keeping on top of the news, and identifying good story ideas, writing a lot, assigning some, editing everything, helping, put together a daily newsletter, actually writing a lot of the daily newsletter. So I'm at my desk often 12 hours a day, just keeping up and putting out the newsletter and moving stories forward and managing maybe 300 to 400 email that come across my desk every day. So it's a big job. It's a lot of work. Again, I love it, but it's a lot of work.
So it's not because of lockdowns that we, for example, here in Austria have at the moment. It's not a Netflix holiday.
No.
You have to answer 300, 400 emails. So quite impressive.
Yeah, and I'm a single parent. So once I stop this job, I start the other one.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's where the bulldog work ethic comes from.
Yeah.
Every
I don't
day.
have a choice. I don't have much of a choice in the matter. So, but it's all good.
And what about the global tourism industry? What do you think now? Because here in Austria, it's over 1 year, I guess in the US and in many other places too, that the hotels are closed, totally closed. Some restaurants now again had the opportunity to open, but only with like to go. How do you think will change this maybe on a global, from a global perspective?
Yeah. It's by region right now. Things are starting to open up here in the States. Not sure if they're doing it too quickly or not. I'm more conservative. I like to make sure we get this really overcome before we open up as much. But there are things opening up here. Most parts of Southeast Asia are opening up because they have the virus under control. But Europe is still struggling. India has an incredible breakout. They're having terrible trouble right now with COVID. So they're pretty much locked down. But if you're to compare today to a year ago, there's light. There's light at the end of the tunnel. There are vaccines now that are going to, be given around the world. Eventually, everybody's going. Whoever wants to get it will get it. And travel, tourism has become. It's a birthright. Everybody wants to travel. It's one of the biggest contributors to gross domestic product around the world. It's a huge revenue generator. And this too shall pass. COVID will pass. It'll change some protocols for how hotels and hospitality operates. But if you have a little perspective and think maybe in 2 to 3 years, things will mostly, I hope, I expect, be back to normal. And there will be incredible pent-up demand. You're already seeing it here in the vacation spots. You can't even find a hotel room because they're all booked, because everybody is chomping at the bit to get out and travel and have a vacation, release some of that stress everybody's had the last year. Yeah. So, the future is good. And it's just a matter of hanging on. And for hotel owners, it depends on how well capitalized they are and how much debt they have to service. If they're well capitalized and have a reasonable amount of debt, they shouldn't lose their hotels. But there are different types of places to stay now. You've got Airbnb and VRBO, vacation rental homes, and that's, if anything, threatening the hotel business more than long-term, more than COVID will. It's people seeking out alternative stays. So it's up to hotels to really kind of reinvent themselves, make them experiential, make them warm and welcoming, and make them desirable when you compare yourself to an Airbnb. You know, the Airbnb slogan is live like a local, you know, and hotels need to do the same, you know, kind of create that same environment where you really feel like you're immersed into the local community. And they're doing a good job. A lot of hotel owners and operators are understanding this and are evolving their offer to compete with outside influences like Airbnb.
How would you say, because the media, for example, hotel magazines, has also to adapt to certain technologies like internet, big data, Internet of Things, etc. So one question would be, what do you think, or how much will it influence all these keywords I mentioned, the industry, but also how do you adapt? Especially we know Twitter, where you have a limited space of science, and the people, mostly the young people, very young, like much younger than me, they don't like to read so much. And not maybe it's such a prejudice, but I mean especially the older formats that I enjoy, like books, for example, they like to maybe read on the internet, etc. No, so how do you think affects it hotel magazine? This would be two questions, and another one before I forget. You mentioned the situation in India, the situation in, for example, in Europe, etc. And with so much work that you have, so many emails, etc., how do you get like, how do you inform yourself, or how do you get a very good overview about every day about the current situation, not only about COVID, but I mean about the industry, because there's so much, no? You mentioned real estate, of course, hotel, tourism, etc. No?
Well, I'll answer your second question first.
Yeah.
What I normally do every day, you know, and I usually sit down in my office around 6 a.m. I'll read. I'll spend the first hour maybe looking at some email, because I usually have about 150 email that from overnight. But I'll read. I have bookmark websites that are very good at covering the business world, and I'll catch up what's going on day to day. And I do that throughout the day. I'm constantly monitoring world affairs and business affairs. You have to be informed and to be able to write in a way that is not naive and well thought, very current, because my readers are very sophisticated. These are the developers, the owners, and even the hoteliers. They know what's going on in the world day to day. So I need to know just as much, if not more. So I'm always reading. And a lot of information comes into me. All that email, there's a lot of information in that email about what's happening in different countries from a performance perspective and from a development perspective. So I'm constantly taking in all that information to inform me as to what I should write about. That's never ending, 24/7.
And 365 days.
Yeah, it is.
Even
That's
on
the way of the
vacation.
world. That's the way of the world. But as far as how we're adapting our offering, of course, everything is going digital. Of course, we're posting everything. Well, the more important stories we write, we're posting links on social media, so we can disperse our information, not just in a magazine or even on a website, but we're pushing, some of our information out via social media. But you talk about the next generation doesn't want to read. Well, I would love to write a long form story or profile, 2,000-3,000 words, maybe longer. Well, I'll do that sometimes when I feel it's really appropriate and there's a big story to tell. But for the most part, a lot of our stories are getting shorter. And because we understand first of all, people don't have the time to read something that long. And the next generation, they read snips. They're so used to, getting something off of Reddit or, something, another form of media where they can just get little bites. So we're doing more little bites because we understand mentality about reading. And so you have to be very concise, or you also have to be very creative. And whatever you write that lead to the story really needs to draw in the reader. You have to write in a way that it's like, oh, this is really interesting. The lead of that story is compelling. I want to read more. So you really have to be thoughtful in the way you write, how much you write, and on what mediums that you put out your content. So, print used to be king. And it's funny, anytime I do a story and the source will ask me, oh, is this going to be in, I'm writing and it might appear on the website in the next week, maybe tomorrow, maybe even today. But they're always asking me, is this going to be in print too? Is this going to be in the print magazine? So it matters to a lot of people still. Maybe it's closer to my generation, maybe because these tend to be more senior level executives who might be in their 40s and 50s and 60s. And they always want to be in print. They're disappointed if it's only going to be on the web. So there's just something about print that still matters. And we also have a digital issue of the magazine, exact same as it looks in print, only it's digital, kind of a flip book. And we try and encourage our readers to switch from print to digital, partially because it's cheaper for us. We don't have to mail print magazines all over the world. That's really expensive, and we're a business to make money. So we're encouraging people to switch to print, and some will. And then they'll come back to me a month or two later, say, can I get my print issue again? I like reading, the magazine in my hands as opposed to on the computer. It's a better experience. So there's this dichotomy, where everything's digital, but, there's a certain percentage who really still love print. So print will live on, especially if it's really niched, and we're very niched, of course. So I think there's still going to be room, at least for the near term, maybe in another 20 years, or maybe even less. The print magazine that we put out might not exist. It'll be strictly digital, and it'll also be real time. We're doing events. We might be streaming more, or or doing live interviews online. Just the way we're doing this now. I know this isn't live, but there will be live interviews, and we can generate an audience that wants to hear the live. Of course, it'll be available on demand afterwards, but it's evolving towards a whole digital revolution. And yes, doing it via this way with an interview, as opposed to having the reader have to read something, there's going to be more of that too. So they can just listen, put in their earbuds and listen while they're on their commute, or, as opposed to having to actually read something, God forbid.
Exactly. Because you cannot only watch it, you can also only listen to it.
Yeah, right.
Driving in the car or something, like a podcast, etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think? You mentioned it also indirectly, sustainability, climate change, etc. Because if you don't have to print them, it's also better in the end for the environment, of course. But I, for myself, also include me into the list of, I prefer to read in paper, and it's an overall experience, and I think maybe also some of the readers, they think in the digital space it disappears, and like this on paper you can show it, you have it, and it's also something about having it, I think.
It's a reference. It's something you can look at again
and show to the friends. And digital, well, let's see what happens. But what do you think about all this sustainability issue? for companies now with the pandemic. I think also there's even more awareness also with the new president in the US, especially about the US. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, sorry about that. Are you talking about publishing, or are you talking about the hotel business?
No, more about hotel business and in general, no, just some ideas if you want to share.
Well, funny enough, I think yesterday was Earth Day, right? And every hotel,
every day, no?
Well, every day is Earth Day, you're right. But it's funny, yesterday being the official Earth Day, every hotel company came out with some sort of press release or statement about their sustainability efforts. And everybody's trying to go to zero carbon offset. And as we come out of the pandemic, it's something I've been preaching in my editorials, is that you need to become more socially conscious. Your consumers, the likes of you and me, you want to know that the people that you're spending your money with are acting responsibly and thoughtfully and empathetically. So you're seeing a lot more, again, especially since COVID, and how that has raised awareness, and climate change becoming more and more of an issue. It's raising awareness in this business, and the travel industry in general contributes quite a bit to to pollution because of air travel and waste and the likes. And so they're taking notice, and they're making efforts to be more sustainable and to be more compassionate as operators, to train their staff to be more empathetic and more thoughtful in the way that they treat guests as they come in the door. Just to be kinder. Real simple. It's not hard, but it's amazing how hard it is to find hospitality workers who get that. It's not easy to train. It's something you're kind of born with. So it's always a challenge, but every hotel company is really stepping up their corporate social responsibility efforts, which is kind of morphing into the acronym ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. One of the hot topics now that I'm reading a lot about is the ESG business investing, where major investors are only going to invest in companies that are really environmentally careful and environmentally forward thinking, socially aware, and taking care of their own, as opposed
not
to
only greenwashing.
Well, there's
companies.
still a lot of greenwashing, a lot, probably more greenwashing than there is real tangible efforts. But again, I think they're going to have to change their story because again, the next generation is going to demand it. And all these big events that happen, the meeting planners that create these big conferences, they're not going to sign a contract with your hotel unless you can show that you're being socially responsible. So it's going to grow. I hope.
Two last questions. I don't want to take you so much of your time. Writing. You have written, I don't know how many articles, how many editorials, you have written a lot of pages. Any tips, any recommendations, anything in particular you would like to share? Well,
practice makes perfect, and God knows I'm far from perfect. But don't be afraid, and just keep writing. And if I were to look back at what I wrote in college, I would laugh. It's like, oh my God, I knew nothing. I was terrible. I wasn't terrible, but I was far from great. So but I didn't give up. That's the bulldog in me. I just kept at it. And slowly but surely, I got better,
Mm,
and I learned, and I kind of figured it out.
mm,
So it's repetition.
mm,
And sometimes you're sitting in front of a screen, it's like, and you feel intimidated about writing that story.
mm,
Just start writing. Don't even look at your notes.
mm,
If you know what you want to write about, just start from what's coming from inside you to get started, because that way you tend to be more creative if you just think about what you want to say and the message you're trying to deliver. So leave the notes over to the side until you're ready to really get into the nitty gritty of the story, and
mm,
just sit there and think about what you want to say. What's the message? And
mm,
just start typing. And when you start typing, it won't be perfect, but
mm,
it'll get you started.
mm,
And then you'll go back and you'll read it and like, wait, let me fix this. Oh, wait, this is a better way of saying it. And the next thing you know, you've got a great lead.
mm,
And as we mentioned before, people have a very short attention span. So
mm,
when you write, you
mm,
have to grab them. I read so many stories and I get so many manuscripts where the writer does all this setup.
mm,
Like they explain why they're writing the story.
mm,
Don't do that,
mm,
because you're writing for a pretty sophisticated audience who already knows most of what you're telling them. And if you're telling them things they already know, they're going to flip the page. They're going to
mm,
click out of that story because
mm,
you lost them. You're boring them. You're giving them background. They don't need that. So you need to write a lead that really grabs their attention, that has authority, that is concise,
mm,
and that can um, start to tell a story in a really imaginative and creative way. And even don't be afraid to have fun. Don't be afraid to be funny, or
mm,
kind of take a leap of faith and
mm,
you know
mm,
write what you think
mm,
might be a little far-fetched, but you're going to get the reader's attention and they'll keep reading.
mm.
So, but at the end of the day, it's just keep writing. If you want to be a writer, a journalist especially, it's practice, 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 practice.
Thanks so much for the wise words, also for the audience. Surely interesting. Because you mentioned the fun factor, now we would like to switch to something funny. I would mention just keywords, and you tell us what came into mind. Okay?
I'll try.
And we would start maybe with your favorite hotel.
Oh boy, there are so many.
Honesty, yeah. Or well, you can mention some. Of course, I don't want to get you into problems with the owners or with
No,
the
no, no, no.
managers.
That's not a problem. It's picking. There are so many wonderful properties. Well, one of my, this goes way back, and it's something that made a big impression on me when I was still kind of new to the industry. One of my first trips was to Hong Kong, and I got to stay at the peninsula in Hong Kong,
Mm,
and it was just for somebody who hadn't had those experiences at all. It
mm,
made such an impression. The service was great. The the young men in the pillbox hats that open the door for you, and just the service in general
mm,
that you find in Asia is
mm,
so far ahead of anywhere else. They're just so on top of it, and so gentle
mm,
and thoughtful, that I always think about Asia as being the pinnacle of when it comes to service. And honestly, what makes a hotel stay for me isn't necessarily all the trappings and the beautiful rooms and the restaurants, the food and the wine. It's the service. So I just remember the service when I checked into the peninsula in Hong Kong. That's one of my favorites.
Another hotel you want to share? I give you an
Pardon me?
opportunity. Another one you want to share? Another destination or
Oh
hotel?
boy. Um, oh well, it's more of a personal thing, but I had a wonderful stay at the Victoria Jungfrau
Interlaken.
in
Switzerland.
Interlaken. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, was it was a combination of work and pleasure, and I had somebody with me, and it was
Nice.
just a wonderful time. And that's a great property, and the location there, and in the mountains was spectacular, and it's a great experience.
Your favorite chain or hotel brand?
Mm. Well, lately, the the
Can change.
company the company that's really impressed me, and be aware that we're more niche toward the higher end of the market. We cover the bigger hotels and the more of the upscale and luxury hotels as far as where we're niched as a publication. So there's a group here based in California called Auberge Resort Collection. And they have beautiful properties in great locations. And they have a service philosophy. Again, it always comes back to me about how you treat the guests, much more than the brick and mortar. It's the service. And they have a great service philosophy, and they have great locations, and it's very low key. It's very chill. And I really, for me, I relate to that. It's not too formal, not too stodgy. Oh gosh, there's so many. There's a lot of great hotel companies. And what I also will say is they're great leaders in this business. And so when you ask me what great hotel companies, I think of their leadership. And the gentleman who runs Hilton, his name is Chris Nassetta. He's a great guy, and he's a great leader, and he's done a great job with Hilton. So I think of Hilton. I think, unfortunately, the hotel industry suffered a huge loss a couple months back. Arne Sorensen, who was the CEO of Marriott. Marriott's the biggest hotel company in the world. So, they have good, and they have challenges when you're that big. It's hard to steer a ship that's so big. But Arne was kind of bigger than life because he was so personable, and he was so thoughtful, and he was always, championing causes that were more social than we were talking about earlier. He was a leader from a hotel industry, global hotel industry perspective. He led by championing causes and people development. So I have a lot of respect for what he did for Marriott over the years. And so they're endless. There are a lot of great leaders in this industry all over the world. So I could name many hotel companies, but
actually this was the next question, because I wondered because the CEO of Marriott, he didn't really came from operations. He was actually a lawyer.
Right.
And I thought maybe you would say takes rather somebody that came from operations. And I saw that, well, you have done also an interview with Horst Schulze from Ritz-Carlton and a Capella, who is also a great leader, no?
Horst is my favorite. He's incredible. He's so inspiring.
Totally agree.
But there are two types of hotel leaders. There are the ones who have the business acumen, not the operational people like Horst have business acumen too, but they understand the numbers more. And Arne, right, he was more of a deal maker. He was more of, came through on the hotel ownership side before he came over to operations side. And yes, an attorney. But he adapted really well. He understood, and it was just inside of him. It was something that was natural for him. Impressive. So, there are others. I'll point to Sebastian Bazin, who runs Accor out of Paris. He's a deal guy. He came from Colony Capital, about buying and selling properties. But when he took over at Accor, he was really, and he's been very inspirational to me because he's made a lot of changes and tried to do things differently, really thinking about the future of travel and the future of the hotel business, and has done a lot of interesting things that traditional hotel keepers have not. So he also came from a financial background, and I think has done a great job with Accor, really, changing that company, another huge company. So you don't have to be a hotel keeper at heart to be a successful hotel operator. But yes, you do get a lot of, I'm always drawn to the Horst Schulzes of the world and the great operators, because, they have this, desire to serve. There's a real understanding of hospitality and service. And that speaks to me more intimately. And so I truly appreciate the Horst Schulzes of the world. And there are many more. Izzy Sharp, who started Four Seasons, another one who led with a service culture, and there are many, many more.
Your favorite writer, because you write, so it can be in this industry, but also in general. Maybe you like Mark Twain, maybe you like Shakespeare. I don't know.
Oh boy.
What comes into mind? What do you read?
Well, I'm so busy reading all day that on my free time, which is my free time, I take care of my kids. So I'm not able to do too much pleasure reading.
You can also mention a magazine or a newspaper, or
yeah,
I don't know.
There's a author who just passed, who it's Larry McMurtry, who wrote Lonesome Dove, one of my all-time favorite novels about the far old West. He wrote a few books that I really loved. So he's one that comes to mind. There's an old sports writer. I don't think he's with us anymore. Wrote for the LA Times, and I can't think of his name, but I used to cut out some of his articles, and they were mostly commentaries, and he just was a poet. And I'm very sporty. I started as a sports writer because I love sports. And he was an inspiration to me as a young writer, and his name is escaping me. I'm sorry.
Okay. Which personality from the industry, from the travel, tourism, hospitality industry, would you like to invite for a cocktail, for a dinner, and have a nice chat? It can be historical, or it can be a living person. Or it can be Cesar Ritz, for example, or Escoffier.
I was going to say Cesar Ritz, because of what he meant to the business and how he changed the hotel business, and especially the luxury, how he invented luxury hotel business. So I would say Cesar Ritz would be right up there. And we have a modern day, we already mentioned him, Horst Schulze. He's, to me, the modern day Cesar Ritz. I wrote a profile about him just a few weeks ago.
I read it.
I referred to him as the modern day Cesar Ritz. So anytime I could spend with Horst is great. I don't think I could pick any one in the hospitality business. I would probably convene about 20 hotel general managers. I love the operators, the guys who are in there running the hotels, because they likely speak 3 or 4 languages. They know everything about food and wine. They're dressed impeccably all the time. And they're so gracious. So if I were to gather 20 hotel GMs, and I could name names, but I'm not going to, because I'll offend who I don't mention. But I would say gather 20 great GMs from around the world and have a wonderful dinner. That would be
I
that we
hope
had.
it's not the last supper or the last dinner,
Well,
but it would be
yeah,
a nice movie.
I'll also say Bill Marriott, because what he's accomplished.
Yeah.
And I've had a chance to sit down with Mr. Marriott a few times,
Wow,
and
legend.
you're just kind of in awe
Mm,
of him. And he's, again, it's really, he makes it sound so simple.
mm, mm,
Um, and it hasn't been, but he's accomplished so much.
mm,
And he's the legend. He's the true legend.
mm. A personality that is not from this industry, alive or dead, that you would love to meet.
I probably would love to sit down with the Dalai Lama.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I love his teachings. I love his philosophy, and
What would you talk about with him?
how to be happier. How to
Okay.
further. We're all here to, the ultimate goal is happiness, right? There's nothing more important than spreading love and being happy. So I try as best I can, but it's not always easy in the world we live in. So I would seek his counsel on how to live a happier life. And yeah, I listen to some of his. He goes live on Facebook on a regular basis. And I try and usually it's at late at night here in Chicago. I'll get the little alerts on my phone that the Dalai Lama is live giving a lecture, and I'll try and tune in before I fall asleep.
Wow.
And catch it. So I
Nice
would say,
routine.
yeah, the Lama.
Going back to Cesar Ritz, what would you ask Cesar Ritz, or what would you talk about Cesar Ritz? About his work ethic?
No, I would want to know some of his great stories, about who he's entertained and some of the unusual requests he's had, and some of the funny stories, that he's and where he developed, where he got his philosophy, how he developed his philosophy,
Mm,
and some of the influential people in his life.
mm, mm. Would be surely interesting to have a book from him, not from Cesar Ritz, as a book from you. So maybe that is an invitation to write about all the stories you experienced.
Maybe one day, once I stop working full time and have more time, my kids grow, leave the house, and maybe
Right.
I'm a bit of a pack rat, so I have a lot of material, a lot of
I
notes,
think
and
a lot to share.
yeah, it would take a lot of recollection and thinking about all the people I've talked to, and I think it would be a collection of interviews.
Nice. The last two short questions. Habits. What do you think are your most important habits? And one destination it is still on your bucket list. You haven't go.
Boy, habits.
Tough questions for the early morning.
Yeah. Well, I'm a creature of habit. I tend to, stick to my routines and put in long hours. I'm not sure that's necessarily a great recipe for being happy, but it's a recipe for being successful. Not being afraid to fail as well. Don't try something. If you think it's a good idea, try and execute, try and collaborate, find the right people to collaborate with and
How do you
delegate.
find them, the right people?
It just comes with experience, and it comes with the people you work with. I'm not on an island. I have a team and a whole organization, and being able to motivate them with an idea and explain a well thought out idea and why I think it makes sense and why there's a good business case for it, and then try and get people to buy in, and then delegate or not delegate, or get people involved, make them a part of the whole idea, get them enthusiastic about participating in the project. And and there are many projects like that we do on a regular basis where it's not just me by any means, it's a team effort. But I don't know, start early. That would be a habit. I'm up early, usually up by about 5 a.m. and get the coffee rolling. And
what time do you go to bed?
I'm usually asleep before 10, mostly.
So early bird and not to go,
that's not my history. When I was younger, more of a night owl, but that's kind of, as I've grown older or become a parent, those habits change. So I get at it early, get a head start on the day, because I've already put in a few hours work before most people are even, turning on their computers. So I feel like I'm ahead of the game. And that's a good feeling to have every day when you're getting things done early. What was the other question about?
The destination that is still on the top of your bucket list.
I would say probably the Amalfi Coast in Italy, where I've never been and I've always wanted to go. Positano. That would probably be at the top of my list, just for, just the environment there. And I just imagine it's so very peaceful and
beautiful place.
Beautiful
so next time when the pandemic is over and it's actually close to Austria, we are half an hour from Italy. So maybe we drink an espresso and do some sports and I can say hello.
I would love that.
Nice. Thank you so much, Jeff.
My pleasure,
It was
Alex.
really
Thanks.
amazing to talk to you, really inspiring, and I'm sure also for the audience. And yes, I hope you still have a good breakfast and good coffee because it's early morning over there. Again, thanks so much. It's really very interesting, everything you do and everything you write.
Thanks for your interest in me. It's fun.
Of course.
I enjoyed it.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Cheers.
Jeff.